my birthday dinner, my sister announced her pregnancy with my husband, expecting me to collapse. "We're a family now," she sneered. I stayed silent, raised a toast, and revealed a shocking truth. Suddenly their world shattered. Hey Reddit. My name is Laura, and my 30th birthday will forever be remembered, not for the cake or the candles or the gifts, but for the moment I exposed the two people who thought they had destroyed me. I used to believe that betrayal came with warning signs. Distant silence, strange behavior. But I learned the hard way that some betrayals happen right in front of your eyes, dressed in smiles and pretending to love you. For most of my life, my sister Renee and I were never close. We were just two people born into the same family with opposite personalities and entirely different paths. Renee was loud, charming, always the center of attention. The kind of girl who could lie through her teeth and still have people clapping for her. She was 2 years younger than me but had always acted older or tried to. She was the risk-taker, the wild child, while I was the responsible one, the quiet achiever who followed the rules and kept the peace. My parents enabled her. Every mistake she made was waved away with "she's still learning," while every small slip of mine was met with disapproval. I was raised to be the dependable one, the one who would clean up after everyone else's messes, and I did for years. But nothing could have prepared me for the kind of mess they would eventually make together. I met James, my husband, at a charity auction 7 years ago. He was tall, polite, a little reserved, but he had a way of making people feel listened to even in a crowded room. We dated for 2 years, got married in a quiet ceremony, and settled into what I thought was a peaceful, steady marriage, at least for a while. We had our issues, sure. Who doesn't? He worked long hours as a financial analyst, often traveling to conferences in other cities. I had my own demanding job managing HR at a local nonprofit, but we made time for each other, or so I thought. Looking back now, the signs were there. The sudden phone privacy. The way Renee laughed too hard at his jokes at family gatherings. The weird tension in the air whenever I walked into a room and found them talking, always just the two of them. Always a little too quickly ending the conversation, but I trusted them. That was my first mistake. About 6 months before my birthday, Renee called me in the middle of the afternoon, something she rarely did unless she needed something. "I just wanted to check on you," she said sweetly. "You've sounded a little off lately." "Off how?" I asked, suspicious but calm. "You know, just tired. Maybe James isn't treating you right. Just saying." The comment struck me as odd. James and I hadn't been fighting. Not more than usual. But something about her tone didn't sit right with me. I brushed it off. Again that weekend, James went away on another work trip. This one felt different. No itinerary. No real explanation. I asked him if I could come along since I had vacation days saved up, and he quickly shut it down. "It's a small team. Not a good fit," he mumbled. He left Sunday night. By Tuesday, Renee was posting photos of herself in a luxury hotel in the same city James was supposedly in. I stared at the screen, my stomach turning. Still, I said nothing. Instead, I started watching. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't confront him. I just paid attention. I checked our shared bank account. Transactions popped up for restaurants I'd never heard of, spa appointments, expensive gifts from stores I never received anything from, always when he was traveling. Then came the photo. A friend of mine who didn't even know about my suspicion sent me a blurry picture of James and Renee standing very close in a parking garage. His hand was on her lower back. They looked intimate. I felt my chest cave in. I went cold, but I didn't cry. Instead, I started planning. My birthday was coming up. I usually avoided big celebrations, but this time I insisted on having dinner at my favorite restaurant, private room, full family invited. My parents, some cousins, and of course Renee and James. They had no idea I knew. I watched them like a scientist observing two specimens who thought they were being clever. James tried to act normal, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder when greeting me. Renee showed up in a red silk dress, far too bold for a family dinner. When everyone sat down, I made polite conversation. I raised no suspicions, not a single clue, until dessert arrived. That's when Renee stood up, her fork clinking lightly against her wine glass. "I have an announcement," she said, all eyes turning to her. She placed her hand on her stomach dramatically. "I'm pregnant." There were gasps, smiles, then confusion. She turned her gaze directly to me and said sweetly, smugly, "It's James's baby." Silence. Actual silence. I heard my mother's knife slip off her plate. My father coughed. James shifted in his chair, eyes not meeting mine. We're a family now, Renee added, smirking. Just wanted to be honest with everyone. She expected me to break, to cry, to scream, to run, but I didn't move. I simply raised my glass. A toast, I said calmly. Everyone turned to me stunned. I stood slowly and cleared my throat. To Renee and James, the first, began locking eyes with each of them. May your relationship be as faithful as your lies and your future as bright as your betrayal. There were murmurs. Then I reached into my purse and placed a stack of papers on the table. Copies, bank records, phone logs, photos, all of it. The entire affair in full color documented. My sister's smile faltered. James looked like he'd swallow glass, and I wasn't done yet. I looked at my parents, and for those of you wondering, yes, I knew for months. And I decided to let it all play out right here tonight. I took a deep breath, but there's one more thing you don't know. I pulled out one last envelope, and that was the moment their world truly began to shatter. I hadn't heard from Renee or James in months, and I thought I was finally done with both of them. But then came the fallout I hadn't anticipated. It started with whispers. A friend from high school messaged me on Facebook. Hey. Is it true what happened at your birthday dinner? I wasn't there, but I heard something wild. I didn't respond. Then the story spread. Because the thing about betrayal this personal is it doesn't stay private for long. Not when you live in a town where people still know each other's last names and everyone goes to the same supermarket on Sundays. My cousin Molly, who was at the dinner, told me people had started taking sides. Some defended Renee, claiming she was just in love and couldn't help it. Others were disgusted, especially once word got out that she was pregnant with her sister's husband's baby. I didn't engage. I didn't feed the gossip. I simply let the truth exist, but it got to Renee. I know it did. A month later, I saw her name pop up on a community Facebook group asking for prenatal class recommendations. The comment section. Brutal. People called her out. Subtly, but enough. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. She messaged me again. This time not to apologize, but to beg me to set the record straight. I left it on read. James? He didn't have it easy either. I'd learned from a mutual acquaintance that his company had seen the story circulating, and even though it wasn't official, it was enough of a stain that his contract wasn't renewed. Word got around. He had to move back in with his parents temporarily. And apparently he wasn't too thrilled about fatherhood. Renee ended up moving in with our parents while she was pregnant. She wanted support, but support is earned, and none of them had ever given me any. Meanwhile, I built something new. I started a blog anonymously at first about betrayal, rebuilding, and radical self-worth. I didn't use names, didn't spill gossip, just stories, real ones, raw ones. I wrote late into the night, pouring everything I'd kept bottled up for years onto the page. To my surprise, it took off. Women from all over began commenting, emailing, saying things like, "This sounds like my story too," or "I thought I was the only one." I turned it into something real, a website, a platform, a community. I called it The Second Glass, a nod to the toast I gave on the night everything fell apart. And eventually I wasn't just writing anymore, I was speaking. I got invited to a local women's event as a guest speaker, then another, then a podcast, then a university panel on resilience. People didn't just want the gossip, they wanted the truth, and I had lived it. One night after speaking at a women's retreat, I got back to my hotel room, sat on the edge of the bed, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not even at Renee. She was still who she was. Still reactive, still shallow in her own insecurities. I wasn't going to pretend we'd ever repair anything, but I no longer needed her apology to heal, because the real healing came when I realized I had already won. Not in a petty, vengeful way, but in the quiet, powerful way of someone who had lost everything and then built something better from scratch. One day, almost a year to the day of that birthday dinner, I ran into my mother at a grocery store. She looked older than I remembered. Tired. Not worn down by age, worn down by guilt. She didn't greet me with a hug, just a sad smile. "How are you?" she asked. "Doing really well," I said truthfully. She nodded. I saw the website. It's beautiful. Thank you." There was a long pause. "I should have stood up for you that night," she said. "I should have said something." "Yes," I said. "You should have." "I didn't know how to handle it." "You didn't have to know. You just had to choose." She looked down. "Renee's had the baby." "I know. She named her Lila." I raised an eyebrow. That was the name James and I had talked about using if we ever had a daughter. She looked embarrassed. She said it was a coincidence. Of course she did. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she added quietly. I gave her a nod. That's between you and your own conscience. And I walked away. No drama. No yelling. Just peace. A year later I published a book. Unshattered: How I Found Strength After Betrayal. It hit bestseller lists in a matter of weeks. When I walked onto that stage for the launch event, looking out at a room full of people clapping for me, for my voice, my story, my strength, I felt something I had never felt before in my entire life. I was proud of myself. I was no longer the woman who got betrayed. I was the woman who rose from it. And every time someone tried to define me by that one night, that one moment, I reminded them of everything that came after, because their world shattered that night. But mine. That's when it finally began.